Rip City, this is Jerami Grant, and you're listening to the Blazers Balcony with Brooke, Olzendam, and Casey Holdahl.
Greetings, Blazer fans, and welcome to the Blazers Balcony, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Episode 165 of the Blazers Balcony, presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. I'm your co-host, Casey Holdahl. I'm joined by my co-host and friend at her palatial estate, we will not make the mistake again, in Southwest Portland, Brooke Olzendam. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm really great. Fun times in Blazerland right now. Everyone around town is pumped up, rightfully so. It's just, there's a buzz in the air. It's exciting. That 7 seed, we talked about it so much during the broadcast towards the end of the regular season with Tom coming on and talking about percentages and all this. And so it was fun to think about the possibility and then for it to come to fruition. I went to the watch party that the Blazers had.
Yeah.
And it was packed at Jackie's, which is a very cool venue, by the way, if you haven't been. And has that downstairs, seating. Bleachers. And then the rooftop, which is covered because it was the weather was rough.
It was raining. Yes.
It was like coming in sideways a little bit, but we got it done. But it was so fun. Everyone was just excited to be there. And then the way that the game ended was insane. And it was so much fun to see that level of excitement around the team and everyone all together. You know, it was inspiring. I was like, this is awesome. I just had the best time and talking to people, and they were pumped up about it. And it's just a feeling that I remember having, back in when we would continue to go to the playoffs and postseason, and it was fun to be able to feel that way again. And everyone, I think, would feel the same. And my favorite videos of all time, I've talked about this before, I believe, when Dame hit the game winner over OKC, the Blazers Social did that video of reactions in like restaurants, bars, living rooms, everywhere. And it's like one of my favorite videos. So I loved the reaction videos of the end of that game from all posted everywhere. And it's just, I love it. It's just, I can't wait. I'm so excited for this series. I'm just beside myself.
Yeah, a couple of things there. As Brooke mentioned, Trailblazers beating the Phoenix Suns in the 7-8 play-in matchup to earn the 8th seed and get a berth into the postseason for the first time since 2021 to face the 2-seed Spurs. And, what you're talking about, Brooke, the enthusiasm, the excitement, kind of the camaraderie. Boy, I've tried to put together like 4 words there. Yeah.
It's a tough one.
When there's always so much emphasis put on like, well, if we're not going to win the championship, then we shouldn't be in the playoffs. Like, that's what you lose, is you forget how much fun it is to be in the playoffs. And yes, like, only one team can win it every single year, but there is something valuable about being one of those last teams. And the experience actually means something. Your life is nothing but a series of experiences. And if you're always just looking to hoping that something else happens and you're willing to limit the amount of experiences you're going to have in hopes that maybe at one day you'll have a better experience, that's no way to go through life, in Casey's personal opinion. And it's no way to go through being a sports fan as well. So I am very glad as well to see the Portland Trail Blazers make the postseason this season. Also, since you mentioned Tom, I have a little bit of a bone to pick with Tom.
What's that?
So Tom works for us, but he writes for Yahoo.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
And so he wrote an article about how playoff experience doesn't necessarily matter in the playoffs as of late, and that's why the Spurs are going to win. And I was like, hey, we got the same amount of lack of experience as the Spurs do. You could have used us as the example there, Tom. Now, granted, I don't think Tom doesn't think we're going to win the 2-7 matchup, but there was a part of me that was like, but we also don't have experience. Why are you picking us?
I saw some people that had
and I'm mostly just kind of giving Tom the
business.
I'm not mad at him, but I did think, I was like, if you're going to point out the lack of playoff experience and how that's not a big deal, you could have used that with the Portland Trailblazers as well. But go off, Tom.
No, I noticed that too. I saw some people like, oh yeah, that's right. He writes nationally as well because people that watch Blazers broadcasting, you just imagine that he is rooting for. Not to say he's not rooting for the Blazers, but like just to read something like, oh yeah, he writes for the league also. It's not just got the Blazers back. But yeah, I saw that too, and I thought, I'm like, well, fans aren't going to love that.
Yeah, but you got to do what you got to do, and I actually appreciate Tom's honesty, and his role is a little bit different, anyways. Like it's a little bit different. So as I mentioned, the Trailblazers beating the Suns 114-110 in the 2-7 matchup, in the 7-8 matchup in the play-in tournament on Tuesday. Trailblazers going into Phoenix, building a lead, giving that lead back up, being down by as many as I think 11 with about like 6:30 to play. After a 24-4 run by the Suns, at that point in time, you figure that the Blazers' chances are probably pretty cooked. And at that point, you're probably already thinking like, well, all right, we either face the Clippers or the Warriors. And in retrospect, it would have been the Warriors, which you don't want to play the Warriors in that situation again. So, but that's what I was thinking at that point in time, at least, Brooke. And but yet again, the Trailblazers, as they have done repeatedly in the last month of the season and since the All-Star break, fighting back, sticking with it, and then getting the victory, going back, getting the lead, something that they didn't do earlier in the season. And I thought it was really – I really appreciated that Deni was like, yeah, that was something that we did not do very well earlier in the season, and now we've kind of not necessarily figured it out, but we're at least better about when we get punched, particularly late in games, not folding up the shop and moving on to the next one. They obviously did not do that versus the Phoenix Suns, and now they have set themselves up with a matchup versus the Spurs. So just a really great game. And again, I think one really speaks to kind of the growth the Blazers have made this season, throughout the season, in kind of going from being a young team and kind of a plucky upstart team, and then losing a bunch of players, and then really having to play a different style of basketball, but never really necessarily dealing with adversity all that well in a game, to where they're at now, which is they're healthier, they're playing much better defense, they're not turning the ball over as often, and they're tough. You know, like they are a team now that when they get hit, they take that punch and they deliver one on their own. And that is something that you couldn't have said about this team 3 months ago. So for them to go into Phoenix and win that game the way that they won it, Deni Avdija really, and I told this to Deni yesterday at practice, like, obviously Deni's had a really good season, and him making the All-Star game, like he had already kind of reached a level at this point. Him having that performance in that playing game with kind of all the eyes on the NBA on you, that to me seems like it's taken him to a different level now.
100.
Like it really feels to me that he is getting a lot more respect and appreciation for what he's done and the player that he's become because of that game versus the Suns than anything he did for the Blazers this season, when in a lot of ways he was carrying this team for a couple months of the year. So for all that to happen, for Deni to have the game that he had, for, again, the bench to once again come in and play well. Jerami Grant coming off the bench, having not played in a couple weeks. Me being like, what's going on? Is this too much? And then Jerami going out there and really making plays at the end of the game, shutting Casey up. I will not post a screenshot of our Slack channel where I was cursing the heavens, and then I was talking trash to myself for ever doubting that Jerami was going to come in and hit those big shots. Just a real fun game, a real great way to go into the postseason. I feel like that game for the Blazers, you know, if they end up beating the Suns going away, I mean, you're still very glad that they won. I think the way that they won that game, I think, puts them on a better footing going into the series versus the Spurs. But just a great effort from the Trailblazers. Great coaching from Thiago, deciding to go small late in that game as well, just pushing the right buttons in that game. And that's something I feel like, again, Thiago has really been doing, I would say, in the last month and a half of the season. I think he's really kind of figured out this team and what they need and when they need it. Just everything you would want to see from a team going into somebody else's house in a one-game playoff, snatching their chain, and getting the 7th seed. Yeah,
I read something after the game. Actually, it was side by side with Charlotte, and it was like at one point in the fourth quarter, the Blazers had a 4.6% chance to win the game. And Charlotte actually was even less. They were like 2.5 or something. Just those two games that they were back-to-back is insane to me because they're such great basketball, such good games. But it was amazing to see those guys, as you mentioned, that 24-4 run, I believe it was, where you could have just said, okay, this isn't our night, and start planning for the next one, and how do we get that one? But you're right, they've got so much fight in them that you can never count them out. You can never count them out. And there were a few moments, and I think we've talked about this, just me and you, where I'm like, oh, that might have been it. Like the unfortunate Donovan foul, which I don't think
the flagrant.
Yes.
Oh yeah, no, that was a terrible call. But, and I thought Dylan Brooke technical for clapping, I thought that was pretty bad too. But the fact that they reviewed that and called a flagrant, and then said like he threw him to the ground. It's like, dude, he didn't fall to the ground. He couldn't even flop enough to fall to the ground.
Right.
And you're really telling me that that's why you called a flagrant there? Get out of here.
So even if it had been like a legit call, it was just one of those like, oh no, it's kind of taking the oxygen.
It's one of those things. Yeah, exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Out of this run and this effort, but. You know what? Donovan, good credit to him. He just got over it. Okay. And then, that when Deni wanted a foul on one of those, and they're pulling him back. And I was like, good job, guys. Good job, guys.
I asked him about that yesterday too, because that clip, when they show the shot from so Deni, Drew, and Jerami walking back to the Blazers bench, there's a shot of it, and Jeremy's face, like it cracks me up. Like Jerami kind of has that like squinched sideways face, and he's kind of like, "Come on, man! Like let's go." And even Deni even said, he's like, "Those guys are cold blooded." He's like, they don't get rattled. Sometimes I do, and they helped me out in that one. I was like, yeah, they did.
They did him a solid. They did him a solid, because you wouldn't. I mean, how disheartening would it be for him to get a T on one of those calls, and then again one of those things where it can suck the life out of you. But yeah, the bounce back was just amazing. I was to Jerami as well. I was so impressed with. He was cold blooded for sure. Drew Holiday, the glue. I mean, just unreal. Defense towards the end, getting those huge stops. That last stop at the end was obviously huge. And then it was just so interesting, like to end the game with Matisse. It was like perfect, like the pop out. Matisse gets the ball, little bounce pass, and then Jerami with the dunk at the other end with like 1 second left. It was like exclamation point on the whole thing. And then I've loved the videos and the stills too of the bench reaction. I think that is like the perfect, if you want to know about this team, look at the bench during that last few minutes of that game. And Donovan's so excited. Rob pulling him back too, like, don't go out on the floor, but they're just so excited. And then Dame being Dame, like someone had said something like, Dame's not even smiling. I'm like, Dame wouldn't smile. And someone had mentioned that, like, you must not watch Dame very much. He's not going to flip out and be like, woohoo, but he gives you like the dap, like to Deni with, he was talking to him the whole game, getting in his ear, like telling him what he was seeing. He was dialed in. That's Dame's excited on the inside, but the other guys are excited on the outside, and that was just so fun to watch. It was so cute. Them just so excited, and I felt it. I was like, I'm so proud of everyone right now. It was one of those things where like, you know what, they should be really proud of themselves too. Yeah,
and like the video of like Rob meeting Deni.
Yeah, that was so good.
It's like, oh man, that's great.
It was so good. I read an article, and it was. I read an article where they were explaining all the interactions that Deni had after the game, like with Dame, and then I believe one was with Jerami, and one was with just a number of players, like how they interacted after. And then he's like, of course, then Rob, exuding excitement, gives him, the huge shoulder thing. And it was like, really, and it said they were all, not fans of Deni, but like they were all so just in awe of what Deni did. Like they couldn't get enough Deni, is what I think they said, something like that. But it was really nice to see like they're showing support, because we know that Deni does a great job sharing the ball. We know he's known for his driving and, often getting to the foul line, but he is in 12 assists that night. I mean, he's usually in double figures or close to it in assists. He shares the ball really well. But I love the fact that, and you could just see it, and we've seen it with Dame in the past too, where that last possession, like, he was taking it. Yeah. I mean, he cleared everyone out. He's like, I love that. Like, be selfish in that moment. You know that your team needs this from you. And I thought it was leadership. I thought it was not a selfish act at all. It was knowing that his team needed him, and he knew he could get it done. And it was a beautiful drive, and it was just the perfect way to end that one. Yeah, I think that drive really kind of put a stamp on that game. And I think that's one of the reasons why Deni has gotten so much respect for the way he played in that game. I mean, obviously his numbers, ridiculous. 12 assists, as you mentioned. The Suns as a whole had 20 assists, and Deni had 12. That play in and of itself, like the between the legs, the hesitation, the waving off the screen, like that's the stuff that people love to see out of a player. Yeah. They want to see a guy who's like, I'm going to take this. Legendary.
I'm going to do what I do. And what people have pointed out, and they're exactly right, Denny's going to get to his right hand, and that's that. Mm-hmm. Like, he is you don't need to play his left hand. He's not going to do that. He is going to get to his right, and he does not care. He is going to take it to the rim. He is going to get to his right, even though he knows that you are going to play him to his right. And if you give even one quick inclination that you aren't, which I can't remember who the defender was at that point in time, but kind of shaded off to one side really fast, and he's like, okay, and bam, and I'm going by you. I'm going to draw contact. I'm going to get the little finger roll. Like, that's the exact best distillation of who Deni is, particularly as an offensive player, and what makes him so valuable to this team and what has made him so great this season. We talked about it earlier about him kind of being LeBron-like and people being like, who does Deni remind you of? It's like, hey, guys, it's LeBron. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's got size. He can finish. He's got a handle. He can take contact. He's not athletic, obviously, but like the style of play, the bully ball, getting to the line, those are all things that Deni does really well and again, has really honed his game down to its best pieces. And there's a lot of good in there to begin with anyways. So just a really great effort from him. And I also thought, too, since you mentioned kind of Drew as well, that game to me was a real good inclination of who this team is going into the playoffs, because they're young and they have a bunch of guys who don't have a lot of experience. And sometimes that comes across as, when times are hard, like, boy, you might panic. It might not work out. But sometimes it's just like, I don't know that I'm not supposed to do this.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. And then you also have just a few guys who have experience in Rob and Drew and Jerami, and particularly for Rob and Drew, experience going all the way and knowing kind of what that means and how steady you need to be in those moments in order to be successful. And so I think when you have those vet guys, a couple of them who have been through those situations and know how to act, mixed with a bunch of young guys who have never been there before and in a lot of ways don't know what they don't know, like that's a good place to be sometimes when you're trying to, you don't need to hold in sneezes.
I was talking, that was really hard for me. Oh, God.
Say, now, if your nose starts bleeding, I'm going to be upset.
But me too. That's so uncomfortable to hold in a sneeze. It's
I almost got to you there too. I was like, just sneeze. I don't care. And I literally tried to push the dump button. I was like, we don't have a dump button on this. That's my 4-tracker here. But yeah.
Sorry, everyone. I'm not feeling the best right now. But I did hold in a sneeze just for you. You guys are the only ones I do it.
You didn't sneeze at me.
No,
though.
I would never do
I guess that is nice. But yeah, so that really showed me, again, like why I think they're able to have some success. And same with kind of Thiago as a coach. He's like, I've been through this as a player. I've been through this as an assistant in the NBA. I've been through this as the head coach in Paris where we won a championship. And now I'm here in the NBA doing it. And yeah, like, I'm still learning some stuff too, but like, I feel like I've had the experience, but I'm also green enough to where, like, yeah, I'm going to let this ride a little bit. So I thought it was just a great way to go into the postseason, the playoffs, I should say, for the Trailblazers. The other thing you mentioned, kind of the video of the bench, what I thought was hilarious is the video of the Blazers bench on the Suns' last play when Booker drives and kicks out, and Shaedon is like, he throws his hands up like, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you kicking out? Like, I thought you're supposed to be the guy, and you're going to kick it to somebody else. And granted, that is the right play, quote unquote. But, you pay Devin Booker $50 million a year to be Devin Booker. And, Jalen Green had a really good game, but,
well, he got stopped.
He's not Devin Booker.
He got stopped.
He did get stopped. And that's, but I just thought it was so funny that just tells you who Shaedon is as well. Where, like, if that's Shaedon, that shot's going up. They ain't kicking it out. That's going up.
That's true.
So and that speaks to the idea that's like, hey man, I'm going to be me. Like I say, like with Jerami, it's like I'm shooting threes in fourth quarter clutch situations. If they go down, awesome. If they don't, that's what I do anyways. So I think this team is just in a really good spot. Like we talked about going into the play-in, like I feel like they're really on that razor's edge where like they're ready to go, like they're focused, they understand what they need to do, and they're as prepared for it as they're going to be, and they're as healthy as they're going to be. And so to have Jerami have a really good game in that one, I think that gives him confidence. I think it's a team confidence. Shaedon really came in, gave me some important minutes. Some guys struggled as well, but they were still able to go out and have an impact. I thought Scoot, he played 17 minutes in that game. I thought he did a really nice job in his minutes. I understood why he only played 17 minutes, but I thought that he got exactly what they needed to get out of him in that time. I thought that, Donovan, that's a tough one for him. And I think obviously going into the Spurs, that's going to be a tough matchup for him as well. But I feel like Thiago pushed the right buttons there to be like, hey, this is not necessarily the matchup for DC. Let's try something else. And then again, going small late in the game, that's when they went on their run. Just a really fun game all the way around, particularly with those kind of stakes, which they hadn't played it for in the last who knows how long. And when was the last time they won a game with those kind of stakes? Mm-hmm. Like even when they were in the postseason the last time, they got eliminated in the first round, like winning an important game, like it's been a minute. Mm-hmm. So like that one, just a lot of fun, Brooke.
Yeah. Chris Murray played well too.
I honestly feel like everybody played well.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't anyone where you're like, oh boy. And yeah, Rob, he goes 1 of 6. But, I thought he played good minutes, mm-hmm. And he was a -14. I thought Rob looked good. I thought he gave them what they needed to get. Mm-hmm. And it was about finding kind of the right combination, and they got there eventually. So I really thought everyone played well.
Yeah, I did too. I mentioned earlier that foul that Donovan had late, with those moments you're like, ugh. It was so refreshing to see a couple of those moments. And then when Phoenix got the and one, when somebody went baseline and, reverse late and then he got fouled, I'm like, ugh. But it was just so wonderful to watch, them respond. Mm-hmm. The way they responded. It was never like, oh, well, that's it. That was the play, which is not our night. Never. They never gave up on themselves. They never gave up on each other. That's what they always say. And, Deni, God love him, he said when he was at the podium afterwards, people were asking him about taking that shot and his big night and 41 points, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I just couldn't do it without my teammates. I was like, the amount of times I've heard him say that, and he means it. Well, they do play for each other.
I thought about you when they were doing the post-game interview with Drew, and Drew is a tough nut when it comes to those interviews. And he started going and be like, she was kind of asking about the game, and he was like, well, on that last drive, I really probably should have done. And I was like, Drew, that's not exactly what she's asking you right now, but okay. And the first thing I thought, I was like, Brooke knows exactly what that is, because Drew's just gonna answer whatever he feels like answering. So
it's somewhat similar to Yusuf Nurkic back when he would already know what he was going to say. I could have asked him, what color is the basketball? Well, blah, blah, blah.
Hey, man, we go out there, play hard every single time, man. This team not give up.
No, I love that guy. But yeah, I agree with what you said earlier about, a lot of people out and about at grocery store talking to me about the game, and, soccer parents all talking about the game. And, they asked me, a lot of them asked me, like, what do you think about, what do you think about this series against the Spurs? They were really good. I'm like, they are really good. And I don't think I'm romanticizing this or making it a bigger deal, but there is something to be said for coming off a game like that, coming off, you had a game, Spurs will have had some time off. Obviously you get some benefits from, rehab. If you got some injuries, maybe come back, or just getting some time off. But there's something to be said for wanting to keep running with this and, riding the wave. And I think it's the best case scenario that they had a game like that, where it came down to it, the excitement, the resilience, and to then say, okay, well, let's just keep going. And why not us? Who's to say? So I think it's a benefit that they had that game as against the the Spurs, who have not had a game for a while. I think it could only. I'm looking at it as a benefit, is what I'm trying to say.
I think you're exactly right. I think it's, it reminds me of the college football playoff, where it's like, yeah, you get a top seed, and then you don't play for a month and a half. And then you're going up against a team that played a game that they had to win a week before.
Right.
And yeah, there's something to be said about health. There's something to be said about preparation. But a lot of it is rhythm. And to keep rhythm, you have to play. And so I would almost rather have a little bit of stakes going into the series versus the Spurs, which is also like, it's a long series. Like it's kind of interesting. One, we haven't been in the playoffs in a minute, but two, from a broadcast perspective, to be the NBC games, basically. Like, because I feel like in Portland, we're a smaller market. A lot of times, we're the NBA TV or, the ESPN ones, but like getting primetime games over broadcast is like, those are the top slots. And granted, I think a lot of that is probably about Wemby, but hey, it could be about Portland Trail Blazers too.
There you go.
So to have a series that is going to go long, I mean, you have game 1 on Sunday, game 2 on Tuesday, then you'll play again until Friday back in Portland. So I think that you're exactly right, Brooke. I feel like that sets up well for them in a game 1. I'd rather be the team that played on Tuesday and going into a game on Sunday than the team that hasn't played since whatever it was, and their last game. I think they rested everyone too. So I think that's a better footing to go into. And the Spurs aren't thinking that. They're thinking like, we're going to win the series regardless. So there is something to be said about the idea that like, well, we don't need the schedule to work out for us. We're just going to go and beat you. But I think it's helpful for the Trailblazers to have played an important game there. And again, in the lead up to the playoffs anyways. And we talked about that in the game versus the Suns, in that, the Suns, I think, finished the season going 5-5, and they really didn't have a ton to play for. I mean, they needed to make sure they weren't going to fall back into 8, but there really wasn't a whole lot of chance of that for the last couple weeks. Also, really didn't have a whole lot of a chance of moving up anyways. So, like, they didn't really have a ton of stakes in the last couple weeks of the season, as opposed to the Trailblazers that had to win every single game that they were supposed to win and had to win the coin flip games as well, or else they weren't even going to get there. So I think that's just a better way to go into those games. And I think that's why, I mean, legitimately, I thought the Blazers were going to win that game versus the Suns. Like I really
felt good about it too.
And I don't necessarily, I feel like I'm pretty honest with myself about the Blazers and where they're at and what their opponents are. Like I don't have like a rose-colored view necessarily of the team, but I was like, I just can't shake the idea that they're going to win this game because, again, you look at the way they've been playing lately, you look at things they've been doing particularly defensively, and then you look at the talent versus the Suns at least.
Healthy.
I think we have more talent than Phoenix does. So I wasn't at all surprised to see that, and it was great to see them go out and have that performance in an important game. And going into this series versus the Spurs, again, I just think it's beneficial that they've been having to play such important games at this point in time in the season going into the playoffs. Because if it was just like, well, we were in 8th and we couldn't really fall back, we couldn't really move up, so now we're going to kind of get healthy a little bit, that's just no way to step into a game where like you have to be ready to go the literal first second of the game. And that's the thing about playoffs. Like there's no time to get acclimated. You have to go in right away and be ready to go. And if you're not ready to perform, you got to go to the bench and somebody else got to take that spot because there's no time. Like you have to go from the jump.
And the amount of, it's just funny, just kind of a side note, but the amount of photos I got from people of Dylan Brooks on the bench after the game, like more than like any like photo of the Blazers. I got like, I think like 6 people just sent me that. That was it. And they're like, this is the best photo of the night. I was just like,
and I was thinking about Brooks when you were talking about kind of the moments in the game where you're like, oh boy, when he got that steal and they were going back and then they stole the ball back. That for me at that point, I was like, all right, they might get this one. Like, and I don't know I don't know if that was in the midst of that Suns run or if it was before that, but I just remember thinking like, oh, that's a big play.
That's a big play.
If they get that steal, they're going transition and get a dunk, like you got to call time, like building's rocking. You go from that to like, no, I'm going to take that ball back. Like, again, in a physical game too, they let them play quite a bit, which I think that's beneficial for the Blazers in the playoffs. We'll see. I mean, obviously, Deni's a guy who, his ability to get to the line is really important. But I think when you start looking at the Spurs, I think you figure that they're probably going to be at the advantage when it comes to the free throw line. So I think a more physical game probably benefits the Blazers. I think as physical as they're going to let you be with Wembanyama is going to be something the Blazers are going to have to figure out early. And if they're allowed to be more physical, I think that really benefits them as well. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the 2-7 matchup versus the San Antonio Spurs. The Blazers go 1-2 versus the Spurs this season. Wemby did not play in any of those games, so it's a little hard to know exactly what to take out of that. It's kind of similar to the Suns series. I don't really know that there's a whole lot you can say about the series that you can really take into the playoffs. I guess the Spurs beating the Blazers in that last road game without Wemby, there might be something there. I think that you probably look at that one and say, like, boy, what could we have done better in this one? What are the things we maybe need to address from that game that kept us from being more competitive? And if that had been like a super close game, then I think you're like, okay, fine. It felt like the Spurs were going to win that one for the majority of the game. So I don't know if there's a whole lot to take away from the season series, but obviously there's a lot to take away just from the matchups. And the Spurs, a team that as I wrote it yesterday, they might have the most talent in the NBA. Like when you kind of break down the guys they have, and obviously Wemby is the head of the snake, but they have so much talent. I mean, you have obviously De'Aaron Fox, one of the guy who's super fast with the ball still. Keldon Johnson, a really good player off your bench. Stephen Castle, a great young player. Julian Champagny, a really underrated forward, knows exactly what he's supposed to do, really slots in well. Devin Vassell, another guy too, just underrated guys who I think if they were on other teams would probably be borderline all-star kind of guys. Dylan Harper, young talent. Harrison Barnes, been through a lot, has still given you really solid minutes. Luke Cornett, a very solid backup center. Carter Bryant, a young player who's kind of making his bones on the defensive end. They got a bunch of guys. They got dudes on that Spurs team. And then obviously, it's Wembanyama, who is as dynamic as a player as you're going to find on the defensive end, an emerging offensive game, and a guy who can score with his back to the basket, can score on the perimeter, can drive, can kick. Just a real problem for the Blazers to deal with. So it's obviously going to be a very difficult task for the Blazers. They won 60 games. Anytime you win 20 fewer games than the team that you're facing in the playoffs, you understand why the predictions are what they are. So the Blazers are going to have to, again, they're going to have to be ready from the jump. They're going to have to try to take advantage of what matchups they can. Playoffs are all about matchups. When you're facing a team in a best of 7, a lot of times you might not have more talent than the other team, but if you have talent that matches up better at particular positions, you can overperform what you might have otherwise been able to do. So the Blazers are going to have to try to find where those matchups might exist for them and take advantage of them, because from a talent perspective, the Spurs have a whole lot of it, Brooke.
Yes. It's a very good team. I watched a lot of NBA League Pass, but I don't know why specifically, but I watched like a lot of Spurs games this year. I don't know why. Just on the road and stuff. And they're talented. They have really good chemistry. Again, so do the Blazers. So I know we were talking about which matchups. Obviously, Victor Wembanyama is that you can't stop him, but you can try to alter what he wants to do, what he likes to do. So it's going to be interesting to see how Thiago and the coaching staff goes about defending him. You obviously think maybe Tumani, maybe it'll be the whole team as a whole will have to work together. But I could see that. Also, though, like you mentioned, just all the talent. De'Aaron Fox plays very well against the Trailblazers, averaging 27 points against us this season. So it's almost sometimes those games, and it's similar to Jokic, that you kind of have to look out for everyone else. Mm-hmm. Not to say you don't want to slow down Victor, but it's one of those things too. You can't let other guys go off, and then Victor's going to do what he's going to do. So you kind of have to keep an eye out on the other players on the team that can score, and they have a number of them, as you just kind of rattled them all off. So it's going to be done by team effort, and I think the guys are ready for it, though.
Yeah, it's also one of the reasons. Obviously, the Blazers have two legit centers in Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams, so they could throw at Wemby, and I am sure they will do that at times. But also, your point about kind of Tumani, it seems like the teams that have done the best job of at least limiting Wemby a bit have done so through using kind of 6'9", 6'8" wings who just kind of try to body you as best they can and get into your legs a little bit. The throwing a 7-footer at him, that makes some sense. But one, he's already got the size advantage versus anyone anyways. And two, if he's out on the perimeter, like, that's not exactly where a guy like Donovan or Rob necessarily does their best work. And then if you have to switch, then who are they guarding outside of Wemby? So this seems like a series to me where they're probably going to go small early. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think they'll use guys like Tumani on him. They're really going to need Deni's offense. So part of me feels like putting Deni on Wemby might be difficult. But Deni has also done a pretty good job throughout his career defending centers, particularly those kind of centers, really offensive, talented centers who don't necessarily kind of do their work deep in the paint. I think even a guy like Matisse, I think Chris Murray is going to get quite a bit run on him. I think Jerami is going to spend a fair amount of time on him as well. So, you're exactly right, Brooke. You obviously have to pay a ton of attention to him, but not so much that you're allowing guys to take wide open corner threes over and over and over again, because that's also not going to work either. So in an effort to kind of give our thoughts about how this series might play out, just a few questions for us here, Brooklyn. So first off, obviously Victor Wembanyama, the most important Spur, probably the most important player in the series. But after Wemby, Brooke, who do you think the most important Spur is going to be this?
I mean, I kind of already ruined this for me, but I think De'Aaron Fox. I mean, Stephen Castle, obviously, too. But I think you got to keep an eye on like guys that come out of nowhere. And Stephen Castle is one of those, too. But I just think I've watched a lot of De'Aaron Fox again. I don't know why, but I have.
I mean, he's an interesting player.
Yeah.
Like I think it's his first year in San Antonio or his second season.
I think it's his first.
Yeah, he hasn't been there a long time.
And he's dynamic. He's quick. So I'm thinking him, and you could really go anybody. But I just the way that he's played against the Blazers this season is how I'm kind of basing my decision. So I'd say after Victor, I'd go with him.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good pick. I'm going to go with Stephen Castle. I think that, particularly as a young player who has had some success in his second season, I think he's pretty dynamic. Their guard rotation is ridiculous. Like all of their guards are really, really solid players, and they all do a little something else. I feel like if the Blazers are able to limit Castle a little bit, that would really go a long way towards helping them out. But I think that he is kind of the guy that I would look to next. Yeah, I think Fox is obviously a really good pick, and I think that you could make that claim for any of those guys. But I think Castle's a guy who not a great three-point shooter, so if you can limit those attempts, I think that really helps you. But a guy too is averaging 7.4 assists this season. They just have a lot of creators on that team. Boy, it's going to be tough. But I'm going to go I'm going with Castle on that one. Hopefully Donovan can win the battle of the UConn dudes. So the flip side of that question, Brooke, who do you think the most important trailblazer is going to be in this series? I think that's a more difficult question.
Most important. This is not to say I think they're the most important person on the team, just in general, just in this series. I mean, this sounds like such a cop-out, but I'm going to go with Deni.
Yeah, that's not a cop-out.
I mean, it's going to go. The team goes as Deni goes for the most part. Not always, but with the way he played in that last game, he's got that in him. I mean, I think that can only continue. I obviously, you've mentioned earlier, teams know what he likes to do, but doesn't mean that they can stop him from doing it. Yeah. So I think that his leadership and with his offense, I think that can kind of set the tone for the series if he continues to play at the level that he has been. And it's I feel like it's contagious too when he's getting pumped up when he gets the and ones, when he's has a tough shot that he finds a way for to score. It just kind of like the whole team is just kind of like lifts everyone up, I feel like. So I'm going with him. I mean, I could choose any of them and have a great answer for it, but I'm going to stick with Deni.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good answer.
Thanks.
I'm going to go with Tumani because I think that they need him to be great defensively in this series, I think, to have any real chance. And also, I feel like he's the guy who has probably upped his game the most in the last month of the season. Tumani's shooting well from three, I think, is kind of the X factor for this series. If the Blazers are going to be ultra competitive in this one, I think Tumani's got to shoot like 45% from three. I think he has to knock down every open 3-point shot that he gets. And he's also going to have to hustle nonstop defensively.
Yeah.
I think, he's going to spend time on Wemby, I'm guessing. I'm guessing he's probably going to spend some time on Fox. I'm guessing he's probably going to spend some time on Castle, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell. Like, there's so many guys on that Spurs team that are a problem that I think Tumani's going to have to be his absolute best. And I think he can be. I think that I also feel like he maybe has a little more confidence than anyone else going into this series as well. I think with the way that kind of he struggled a little bit at the start of the season and then really kind of rounding into form at the end of the season, I think Tumani's kind of felt that a little bit. And I think he feels like he's like, no, this is the guy that got that big contract at the beginning of the season. And the guy before was maybe struggling a little bit under the weight of what that meant. But this is who I am. And this is why I'm considered one of the really preeminent young defenders in the league. And I mean, again, I think that two still has he can still do more offensively as well. So I think that this could really be his real a series for him where people realize that like, oh, Tumani is more than just a 3-and-D guy, because he's already starting to kind of get that profile anyways. But I think a really good performance versus the Suns would, one, increase Portland's chances of getting this series considerably, and two, will really show the rest of the league like this guy is maybe even a bit better than you even realize, and you already realize he's already pretty good as it is.
Spurs. You said Suns.
Did I say Suns? Did I say Suns the entire time?
No, just that time.
Yeah, because I also almost kept saying Deni instead of Tumani. So like I was trying to I was policing myself on that while also mixing up who I was talking
Not that
about,
people don't know that they're playing the Spurs.
But now I can't use that as a clip on social media.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, now I have to record myself saying
Spurs.
Which on my solo podcast, I have had to do that on occasion. Go back and drop in.
Oh, that's funny.
Audio,
but it'd be funny if you had a completely different cadence. You're like, in San Antonio Spurs.
Well, I tried to do the audio sweetening, but there was one. So actually, this isn't that interesting of a story. But so when I was talking about the 99-2000 team coming back, and I posted a clip of that, it did really well. But I flubbed their record at the end of the season. So I went back and re-recorded it, and if you go and listen to it,
you might wonder.
A savvy audio listener would be like, "Wait a minute, that sounds a little bit different than the actual conversation."
Well, you got to do what you got to do.
Exactly. It was a great clip, and I'd do it again.
I'd do it again. That's another one of those situations that I've talked about before. I was driving yesterday. And I was like, "Oh, Casey's doing an interview. He's on one of the shows." And I'm like, "God, this is a really long answer." And then it's your podcast.
Yeah. No, exactly.
I've done that a couple of times now. I was like, "Casey, let him ask you another question." I'm like, "Oh, never mind. This is his podcast."
He's by himself. Yeah, no, he didn't have the option.
I've done that with Sean Hyken too when he was doing his. I was like, "This is a really long answer," and then it takes me. And then I'm like, "Okay, wait, it's just his podcast."
Yeah, no. When you're doing the solo one, you just gotta keep talking.
Keep going.
Hopefully, it makes a little bit of sense.
No, it was great.
I
was very entertained, and it was very enjoyable.
We're really getting a lot of audio from you doing that.
Sorry.
Next question, Brooklyn.
Yes.
Who do you think the most important reserve for the Spurs is going to be in this game? Actually, and most important reserve for both teams.
Let me think here. I'm going to start with us. I want to say Shaden. I think he's come back and looked great. But we haven't seen him get into I don't want to say haven't seen him get into a rhythm, but I think it could be have a breakout series, start maybe the first game, second game, just see him really come out and just do what he does offensively. He's been defending very well too. So I'm going to go with Shaden on that. For the Spurs, I'm going to go with maybe. You know what I want to say, which is funny. A quick story. So my son knows so much about so many things sports wise. It even still blows my mind. We were watching a game and the Spurs, and Victor wasn't playing in it. A while back, he goes, I guess it's going to be the Cornet night. I was like, how do you know that? It's going to be a Cornet night. Anyway, I thought that was funny.
Theo's a fan of his,
who knew?
His conservative views.
Oh, gosh. Champagny, does he start or come off the bench?
He does start for them, okay. But I think that's not a bad answer, Brooke, because you could extrapolate it more to like who are the players that aren't kind of like the top end guys who are going to have an important impact on this game. And I agree, like Julian Champagny, I think is really important for them.
Yeah, I remember like whenever we play them,
and that too. He always endures as like a guy. I was like, man, this guy kind of kills us.
This guy he likes to play well against us. Because I recall also like Kevin Calabro saying like this Champagny guy. So I will go with him.
Yeah,
what about you?
That's a good answer. I'm going to go with someone who killed us in the last game versus the San Antonio Spurs, Keldon Johnson, a guy who has was on an Olympic team a few years ago, who has accepted a bench role, who put up 20 points on 8 of 15 shooting versus the Portland Trail Blazers in their 112-101 victory versus Portland back on April 8th. I think that he's a guy who he kind of does a little bit of everything for them off the bench. He's a guy who I don't feel like the Blazers have a great answer for off the bench. I just think that he's someone who I think they really have to contend with him. He's shooting 36% from three this season and 52% from the field for a guy who is 6'5", who kind of plays like a 6'5" power forward almost. That's a problem. And again, a guy who has been a starter in the league. He hasn't started the last 2 seasons, but when you have a guy who's willing to take a bench role, again, who could be starting on other teams for the betterment of the team, that's just kind of like that Spurs thing, and they do it better than anybody else. And so I just think that Keldon Johnson's going to be someone that the Blazers, if they can hold him in check, I think they have a good chance. If he gets going, I think it makes their path to winning the series pretty difficult. Next question, Brooke. What is the one quote-unquote battle that the Blazers need to win? I've
been saying it all year, but rebounding for me, because those second chance points are just gold for us. And we've won games, and I have felt it came down to out rebounding the opponent. So I think it's going to be crucial. Donovan, just keep doing what you're doing, and everyone else get involved as well. And I think that if you can create for yourselves in that way, on top of what you're doing offensively, I think it's huge. I don't think we can even put a value on how important rebounding will be, and especially in this series, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Brooke. The rebounding is going to be incredibly important. You're spot on. Second chance points have probably been the most important part of Portland's offense this season, and that has to continue if they're going to have any success, I think, versus the Spurs. Obviously, the Spurs are a team that has quite a bit of size, and so they're not a bad rebounding squad either, but Donovan has been the best offensive rebounder in the NBA this season, and they're going to need him to be that guy in order to win the series as well. And I think, too, with Wemby, and just in the playoffs in general, I think guys like Donovan kind of get played off the floor sometimes in the playoffs. And so for him to not have that happen, he's going to have to grab every single available rebound out there, and particularly the offensive ones, in order to stay out there and to give the Blazers a good chance to win this one. I'm going to say the turnover battle, just because that has been such an issue for the Blazers this season, that when they turn the ball over consistently and regularly, particularly live ball turnovers, it just sucks the life out of you, particularly in a playoff series when every single possession matters, way more so than in the regular season. You have to value every single one of those possessions, and every turnover is a loss of a possession, and the Blazers are going to need every single last one, which is, to the point about second chance points, the exact same thing. It will not be good enough for the Blazers to just do well in their possessions. They need to create possessions. And the only way to do that is to get second chance points. And the only way to limit the amount of possessions that you are getting, or not limit those amount of possessions, is by not turning the ball over. So I feel like if the Blazers can limit their turnovers, the Spurs have not been a great team this season in terms of creating turnovers. So I think that's where if the Blazers are able to take care of the ball and not just give it away, not let that arena go into, because that's another thing too. I was almost going to put kind of the crowds in here as well. San Antonio's got great fan support, and when that building gets going, like it's hard to feel good about the way you're playing there. So they got to limit those turnovers. If they're able to do that, I think they got a pretty good chance.
Agreed.
Blended Marg or Froze, bro. The last time we were in San Antonio, we had our little team dinner since it was the last road game for a lot of us. And the place we go to there, they have really good margaritas, but they also have a really solid Froze machine. So, Brooke, blended Marg or Froze?
I got a Froze because I was excited when I saw the machine. But overall, I'm a margarita girl. Really, salt on the rim, got to have the salt, or tagine.
I say tagine is it's coming on strong in the
I love it.
in the competition for margarita glass rim.
Yes.
Dried thing you're going to put on it.
Yes, I love tagine. Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
But there's something very refreshing about a margarita. I don't drink a lot of tequila in general. That's like the only thing I would really drink with tequila in it. But it's perfectly mixed. It's refreshing, and I love that salt or tagine. But yeah, I'm a margarita. I like Froze. Don't get me wrong, but if I'm going with one, it's going to be margarita.
And I said blended Marg because it matches up with the profile
Correct.
of the Froze. But would you prefer blended or rocks?
Blended.
Really?
Huh. It seems more fun.
It does seem more fun. I think it feels to me like it's a better drink. Rocks.
Oh, I like it both.
I'm not saying you don't. Yeah, no. I'm
not getting defensive.
I'm not telling my margarita friends that Brooke doesn't like rocks margaritas, but yeah. Finally, Riverwalk or Waterfront.
You didn't
Park,
answer. Bro. You didn't answer.
Oh, I'm gonna say Froze. Okay. Actually, yeah. If it was rocks Marg, I'd say Marg.
Okay.
And I really need to stop saying Marg because I hate the way that Marg sounds. But now I'm stuck in it.
Oh my gosh!
But yeah, no, I think a Froze is whimsical. Like you mentioned, it's kind of a fun thing. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Froze. But again, if it's rocks, I'll go with Marg.
Good answer.
Thank you, Brooke.
Okay, I will go with Riverwalk. I have a fun history with the Riverwalk. My aunt and my mom and my cousin used to, before life got busy, we used to go on a girls' trip every year. And we just chose random places. And one year we randomly chose San Antonio. And speaking of margaritas, their specialty is prickly pear margaritas.
Oh, yes.
And so we went to a Mexican restaurant and had like a couple prickly pears. And my sweet Aunt Carla, God love her, we're walking out and she almost fell right in that river. We were like, Auntie Carla. And I like pulled her back. She's like, what? I'm like, you just about walked into the river. And then we've talked about that for years. And it's hilarious. We're like, don't let her near Riverwalk. So I think it's fun. I think it's really unique, the Riverwalk. You don't see that very often. And it's what San Antonio is to me.
Yeah. That is kind of their crown jewel, so to speak. I almost got knocked off the Riverwalk the last time we were there. So it must have been close to Air Force graduation day or something. So there's a huge Air Force base. I think San Antonio is where they have Air Force Basic. And so when I was walking on the Riverwalk, it was like replete with airmen, air women, and their fiancés or significant others enjoying their time together before shipping off, I guess. But so there was this one group, and they were all airmen or airwomen. I don't know. Yeah, I know. And one of the women was kind of she probably had a few, and she was kind of flailing back, and I tried to kind of move out of her way, and then she flailed again, and I really had to
oh gosh,
swing around to miss her, and I was
I would have laughed so hard.
And I remember thinking, I was like, if I go in this water, this woman is coming in as well. I am not doing you are up to and including. I would stand there on the bank and be like, hey, you got to jump in now, because I would not have fallen in were it not for you. So
that's so funny.
You have to get in this toxic soup as well.
That's so funny.
But I'm going to go to Waterfront Park, Brooke, because it's lovely this time of year, too. The sakura is out, the cherry blossoms blossoming. Riverwalk is very nice. It's a really fun thing to have in your city. But I think Waterfront Park, you get a slice of everything in Portland. You got the couples, you got the folks, hashing out a living. You got a
lot of Canadian geese.
You got the geese. Yeah.
Well, if I could put Riverwalk in Portland, then that would be my favorite. But I like just the feeling of it's not one city versus the other.
Yeah,
it's
no,
just
and that should not be taken that way either. But we're doing a podcast here, so you got to have a little controversy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Blazers Balcony presented by Spirit Mountain Casino. Thank you so much for joining us. Portland Trailblazers facing the San Antonio Spurs. Game 1 on Sunday, 6 p.m. start time on NBC. Game 2 on Tuesday, 5 p.m. start time on NBC. And I don't know what /R means.
I don't either.
Yeah, maybe Peacock /R. I don't know what that means. Game 3. Here in Portland. Get your tickets now if you have not already. If they're still available, they might be gone for all I know. Friday, 7:30 start time, Amazon Prime. Please don't have technical difficulties again this time, Amazon Prime.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah,
you should have been at the watch party when that happened. Oh, no. I was like, this cannot be happening right now. I mean, it wasn't our game.
I've also heard, too, that there's issues with getting Prime at bars and restaurants.
Yes, they had it because the game went into overtime.
They got to
couldn't
figure that
switch
out.
it over or something.
Yeah, they got to figure that out. And then Game 4, Sunday, April 26th, 12:30 start time, ESPN. Hopefully there will be a Game 5, 6, and 7, or heck, maybe the Blazers will just sweep the whole thing and get it done in 4. But I think the longer the series goes, probably the better it is for the Blazers. So until the next time, we will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Peace out.